6 years before the horrific Apollo 1 fire killed 3 American astronauts, a man burned alive in a pure oxygen chamber. But the world never heard his screams because his own government erased him from existence. Welcome back to Galaxy Hoppers. In this episode, we uncover the chilling true story of Valentin Bondarenko, the massive Soviet cover-up that hid his brutal death and the fatal consequences of Cold War space secrecy. In 1961, Valentin Bondarenko was a 24-year-old cosmonaut undergoing a grueling physical and psychological endurance test. He was locked inside a highly pressurized, pure oxygen isolation chamber for 15 lonely days. It was a standard training protocol designed to simulate the harsh environment of a space capsule. The psychological toll of the tiny, silent chamber was immense. The air was thick and heavy with 100% pure oxygen. A pure oxygen environment is incredibly dangerous. It turns everything, even the air itself, into a violent accelerant. A spark that would normally just fizzle out instantly becomes a raging, uncontrollable beast. At the end of his grueling isolation test, Bondarenko removed routine medical sensors from his skin. He wiped the sticky sensor spots with a simple alcohol swab and carelessly tossed the highly flammable cotton aside. It drifted onto a hot plate that was being used to brew a simple cup of tea. In a split second, the tiny spark erupted into a massive, unstoppable inferno. The fire fed aggressively on the highly pressurized oxygen. The flames instantly engulfed the young cosmonaut's wool training suit. The pressure difference inside the burning chamber was so severe that desperate doctors on the outside couldn't physically pull the heavy steel doors open. The doctors could only watch in absolute horror through the tiny glass porthole as Bondarenko desperately tried to extinguish the flames. It took agonizing minutes for the pressure valves to finally equalize. By the time they finally breached the seal, the horrific damage was already done. Bondarenko had suffered catastrophic third-degree burns over his entire body. The only untouched skin was on the soles of his feet. He was rushed to the hospital but died 16 hours later in agonizing pain. The space race was at its absolute peak, and the Soviet government obsessed over maintaining a flawless public image at all costs. They absolutely refused to show the West any signs of failure, so they decided to bury the truth completely. They provided his widow with a tiny pension, but forced her to keep her husband's horrific fate a total secret. Technicians systematically airbrushed Bondarenko's face out of official cosmonaut group photographs. His medical records were permanently sealed in classified vaults, and his colleagues were sworn to absolute secrecy. For nearly 20 years, the Western world had absolutely no idea this young space pioneer had ever lived. It was a flawless historical cover-up. But that calculated lie eventually carried a terrifying international body count. Because the Soviet Union actively hid the fatal dangers of high-pressure oxygen chambers, NASA was left completely in the dark. 6 years later, American engineers built the Apollo 1 capsule using the exact same environment. A stray electrical spark ignited the pure oxygen, tragically killing Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. Had the USSR shared their painful, tragic lesson with the world, 3 American heroes might have survived. If you enjoyed this deep dive into classified space history, please follow and subscribe. Share this with a friend so we can keep uncovering these forgotten cosmic stories. And until next time, stay curious.